Welcome. Scott here. Today I bring you another Black Clover mobile guide. Let's proceed to talk about the featured daily boss. It seems that the either upgraded skill effect and extra passive will change from day to day. The boosted mage will also change from day to day. So don't be surprised if the strategy that you have used previously won't work when you do the run today. Now let's proceed to talk about the featured daily boss. You will be fighting the leader of the Midnight Suns, Licht. He is a red attacker mage. Before I go through the upgraded skill effect and extra passive, let me go through his base kit first. His skill 1 is a single target attacking ability. Upon attacking, he grant himself a 5% increased speed buff. The buff can stack up 4 times. It will also inflict continuous bleed damage on the enemy for 2 turns. His skill 2 is another single target attacking ability. If increased speed is present on himself, he will grant a defense penetration level 2 buff upon attacking. If not, it will grant himself a 10% increased speed buff for a turn. Similar to other skill 2, the ability has 3 turn cooldown phase. His special is an AoE attacking ability. It will inflict continuous bleed damage on all the enemies for 2 turns. If Licht has 2 or more stacks of increased speed, he will instantly activates continuous damage inflict on the enemy. Usually continuous damage is activated when the affected target takes his or her turn. For every instances of continuous bleed inflicted on the enemy, the attack will be triggered after inflicting 25% increased damage taken buff. He has a special passive. For every increased speed present on himself, he will attacks after granting a 10% increased damage dealt buff. If at least one target enemy is taking continuous bleed damage, he will gain a 20% increased mobility buff. Like other bosses, he is immune to silence, total silence and status ailments such as stun or freeze. He is also immune to reduced mobility, mobility depletion, and reduced speed. On top of his default skill abilities and passive, he will also gain an upgraded skill effect or extra passive. This will change from day to day of the boss fights. For today's boss buff, these are the following effects. When he uses his skill 1, he will inflict a reduced HP recovery level 3 debuff on the enemy for 2 turns. When he uses his skill 2, he will grant himself an increased defense level 3 buff for 2 turns. When he uses his special, if an enemy's HP is equal to 75% or lower, attacks after inflicting 50% reduced defense on them. As you go higher the difficulty level, he will gain extra passive. From part 4 onwards, he will inflict 75% reduced damage taken debuff on enemy whose HP is equal or less than 50. From part 7 onwards, upon using a skill, if the enemy's mobility is equal to or higher than 50%, attacks after inflicting 15% increased damage taken debuff on them. For part 10, if there are at least 4 increased speed buffs present on himself, upon attacking, he will inflict silence on the enemy for a turn. The 2 boosted mages for today is Ceremony Luck and Swimsuit Charmy. This is an ultra restrictive fight as you need 2 key utility to handle the boss mechanics, damage over time immunity and buff dispel. For buff dispel, you can use Rill, Lotus, Party Nozel, Third Area, or Spatial Mage Finral. For damage over time immunity, you can use Grey or Swimsuit Gauche. For damage over time's instance removal, you can use Swimsuit Charmy, Party Mimosa or Clover Academy Noel. With the mechanics explained, let me proceed with my runs showcase.
It's the end. Whew! That was way too close.
It's the end. Yeah.